So welcome to the latest episode of CODA's Plugging Away podcast, where we bring you in-depth discussions and insights into the world of oil and gas decommissioning. If you're tuning in for the first time, my name's Francis Norman. I'm the CEO of the Centre of Decommissioning Australia, or CODA. In this episode, we've got a slightly different path. What we have this time is a series of short conversations I captured from the recent SPE Offshore Europe event held in Aberdeen. While I was there, I managed to grab 5 to 10 minutes with a few different people across the decommissioning landscape and really just asked them to talk a little bit about what they do and how they see the market in Europe and more broadly as well around the world. So the 5 different organisations I spoke with were the Net Zero Technology Centre, or NZTC, the North Sea Transition Authority, or NSTA, the University of Aberdeen's National Decommissioning Centre, or NDC, Boston Consulting Group, and DBT, who are the UK Department of Business and Trade. So quite a diverse bunch of people that we that managed to capture for a few minutes for these conversations. So we're going to begin with my conversation with Lewis Harper. So Lewis is the Programme Manager at the Net Zero Technology Centre. Hey, Lewis, how are you doing, mate?
Oh, good, Francis. It's good to see you.
Yeah,
It's
and you
nice to
too.
see you in Aberdeen.
Yes. I wish the weather was better.
Oh, I don't.
Okay, so Lewis, do you want to introduce yourself?
Of course, yeah. So I'm Lewis Harper. I'm one of the program managers at NZTC. So that's the Net Zero Technology Centre here in Aberdeen. And I look after all our industry collaborations. So anything you see, typically NZTC is labelled with the government funding, and that is true. In 2017, we were given 180 million between the Scottish Government and the UK Government to set up and establish a technology centre to support, first and foremost, the oil and gas industry was our mantra to start with. And then around 3 years ago, we pivoted to the net zero realm, as everyone did. But the programs that I support is the industry-funded programs. So anything that we do is funded by operators, predominantly oil and gas operators, is our activity to date.
Busy times?
It is, and it's the bit that I'm really enjoying is the networks that you grow. It's such a, you can't label it, and the way I'm going to explain that is, when you speak to an operator, you might have a specialist in valves for CCS applications. You might have a P&A applications engineer or a decommissioning specialist, and they're quite vast networks from that side of things. But then when you go down to the service sector and the supply chain, they're actually quite diverse, and it's the same people looking after energy transition as a whole. And I don't know if that labels a stretch and kind of shows a stretch, but it shows that in some spaces, your world is huge and your network is continually growing. In other spaces, it's a small, very close-knit community. And I'm liking that. I'm liking the faces that you're getting to build over the years of the work we're doing. So
Yep. So tell us a bit about what it is you do. I mean, the Wells Collab particularly is obviously a tremendous area.
Yeah. So we've got 3 programs on the go just now, 3 industry programs. The first one, the light touch one, is our methane measurement program. So that's with the ongoing sort of growing regulatory landscape of methane emissions offshore and understanding how to measure them. And there's been a whole wealth of technologies of aerial measurement for methane. And now we're getting operators together, taking these new technologies and kind of marking each other's homework. All these drone suppliers are giving us the answers, but are they right? And how do you know which one's right? So we're doing that. It's an incredibly challenging space. The money investment there to support that kind of activity is a lot smaller than what we're seeing in the wells, which leads me really nicely into the Wells Decom Collab. So we've been established for the last 3 years. We're funded by 8 operators as we speak, and it's a global endeavor. And it's actually yourself that labeled it as a technology incubator, which I really like. It kind of defines it quite well. By that, what I mean is we've seen a number of P&A technologies that we've funded in the past. And when we checked in with them, they were always on that cliff edge of waiting for the first pilot or someone to adopt us. And actually those that had been piloted were then into commercial contracts. And so the work we're doing with the Wells Collab is to take all these operators together and be the first one to pilot it. So we ask a yearly fee that gives us our pot of money, and then that pot goes directly back out to the technology companies. So over the last 3 years, we've invested 6 million into P&A technologies, whether that be a 6-month R&D campaign, a 2-week landscape study, or an offshore pilot of 3 or 5 wells. It really varies. So it's been brilliant so far.
And you're seeing some good solutions come through?
I am, yeah. The bit that I'm really getting quite excited about, particularly this year, is the appetite for pilots. The first 2 years, we had to go to the likes of the Canadians to get access to that field trials, which has been brilliant, because the research out there is fantastic and quite leading in some of the work they're doing there. But it's quite cost prohibitive for a small startup to get out to Canada and do these trials. Now we're seeing a real appetite. People get it. People get why they want to assist with pilots, even if it means they're not part of our collaboration. If they don't have the technology budget, fine. They've still got the liability though. And that's what's been exciting this year. We're starting to see a lot more opportunity to pilot, and that's where you do see the dial shift.
Yep. And are there any particular technologies that you're looking at that you're thinking, oh, that one is going to be a game changer?
The common theme is the through tubing aspects. Anything that we can do through tubing and leave as much in hole as possible has great appetite because it's de-scoping your requirements. Axter in particular is a technology we've supported for a number of years, and now we're in discussions as we speak to hopefully, fingers crossed, do a pilot on the 1st of December in the UKCS with that technology. The great thing with that is the pilot would be through the collab, but there's discussions ongoing between the operator and Axter as to the bigger prize of if the pilot works, then we'll need you back for the other 30.
And that's the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's the bit where you step back and you kind of put a sort of quiet smile to know, right, yeah, we got the pilot and we left them to it. And the training wheels come off and they become a really self-sustaining business. And that's the really nice feeling about the work we're doing. And it's also seeing companies that are not involved in the pilot and companies that maybe don't have opportunities to support the pilot but have been part of our collaboration, being sort of the supporters of this as well, being the cheerleaders of it, even if they're not directly contributing to it, but being part of our collaboration and cheerleading that technology is a real mindset shift.
That's a tongue twister, isn't
it? Yes, it's been a long day.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's exciting. The alternative barrier materials space is exciting, but the bit that I've been challenged on lately is I'm getting challenged at more and more is the why sometimes. And I do think personally I need to get a better handle on that. The cost is always going to be challenged, but where it comes in its own is where you couldn't have done a cement barrier and applications that we saw it. We had an application where the flowing gas in the annulus was that bad that no matter how much cement they tried, the gas had migrated before the cement had set. That's where alternative barrier materials come into their own. So we need to get better at defining these unique use cases rather than trying to. I think everyone's of the mindset that alternative versus cement is we're trying to get 100% alternative. No, they'll have their place each. So yeah, that's exciting.
Very good. So, we've been at the conference the last couple of days. I've been in country for a week or so now. It's an interesting market here. It feels like an interesting time to be in decommissioning in the North Sea. What are your thoughts in terms of where things are at?
It is interesting. The bit that I'm really liking is this mindset shift of before we often labeled it as a mature basin, and actually we're starting to take. I think it's the worst thing we can be labeled as is a mature basin. The reason I say that is when we start to speak to the likes of yourselves and we look at the work that's going on in your jurisdiction and the work that's going on in Brazil and that, and we actually pay attention to it, we don't know everything. And some of the lessons that we're learning from these other jurisdictions, and it works both ways as well. And I really liken that because I'm seeing a real behavioral shift into everyone realizing I've got nothing to hide. Let's just actually open up what our plans are and see what your plans are and see how we can help each other. And the kind of the smoke and mirrors are coming down, and that's a nice bit. It's collaboration gets used all the time, but is it truly happening? And I would say it is. Yeah, it very much is.
I think for me personally, I think in the decom space, that's where I really, really see it's that people look at the Too many people refer to decom. You can't make money from it. You can if you're a service company, but from the operator's perspective, the opportunity is to save spend, to save expense. And once you get that perspective, people seem a lot more open to sharing.
Yeah.
A lot more than they are when it's production or optimization or competition for fields and so forth. So
Yeah, and it's probably the pinnacle of some of the engineering challenges we face, in the sense of you approach it and you've got your scope of work, and then you actually get there and it's so varied to what you thought it was. And how are we going to do this? How conventional methods won't work, alternative methods aren't proven, and that must be hugely exciting for everyone. But being able to have your network where you can say, actually, I know someone I can phone up who's done this, or someone I know spoke to and they had the same, and connecting the dots, that's when industry will make a real change.
yeah. So last question then, what excites you for the future?
I'm excited to do more pilots. I actually, although it sounds mental, I do miss my offshore days. So when I get a pilot and then I beg the operator to let me go away as well with it, I really enjoy that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to more pilots. I'm looking forward to, it's going to be really cheesy and yeah, yeah, kind of people will cringe listening to this, but there's something I've been looking at recently around compound interest, and it's people talking about compound interest in your career or an endeavor where at the time you're not quite sure why you're doing something, and then after a period of time you realize, oh, this all ties in. And I feel like now is in, January, we'll get to year 4 of the Wells Collab, start what was originally our final year of the program. It was always meant to be a 4-year program. That compound interest is starting to make sense now, because the Axters that we, stood in the rain for a week in Norway doing dummy testing in a well is now doing UKCS or hopefully commercial jobs by year 4. The alternative products are coming into their own. The logging space is ever evolving and competitive as ever, and the operators are no longer questioning sort of, why would I want to be involved in that or not. They sort of come to me, even if they're not directly involved with do you have anything we could look at here or there? This is our challenge. And you get on the first email pictures of schematics, and the information that's being shared typically would have been 3 or 4 NDAs down the line, and now it's just openness. So I'm looking forward to everything kind of making sense and having a program view rather than why am I doing this project and where's it going?
That's a maturity thing, isn't it, in the program, and
Yeah.
and recognition from the people involved that the program is here, it's delivering good work, and it's worth getting on board with.
It's that piece on trusting the process, and it's these things. You'd be naive to think you can come in, do a year program on decom, make an impact, and go away. These things take a long time and a lot of networking and a lot of engagement, and yeah, that's exciting, that program maturity. But also just where relationships like with yourself and I go, because that's matured as well, like you say about the program, but the expansion of the networks. And for the first time I was in Australia this year, and that was such an eye-opener, seeing the work there. So I'm excited to actually personally expand that, get those opportunities as much as I can. But also, yeah, the maturity of the program and realizing why we did things in the early days coming to fruition.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for your time.
Not at all, thank you.
Keep at it, mate.
Yeah, same to you. Thank you so much for all your support. We really appreciate it.
Cheers, Lewis.
All right. Thanks, Francis.
All right.
Yeah, this is cool.
Yeah, you good to go?
I feel quite fancy. Yeah,
Good.
proper podcaster.
Proper podcaster. Absolutely, yeah. So, Suzie, thank you for doing this. It's great to chat with you. Do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm Suzie Coull, and I am Senior Wells Decommissioning Engineer for the North Sea Transition Authority, or NSTA for short, and we are the regulator in the UK for oil and gas, carbon storage and hydrogen storage. In my role, I am the organisation's technical lead for everything well decommissioning, and I'm the technical reviewer for every suspension and abandonment on the UKCS.
That's a big job. That would keep you busy.
It is quite a big job. Yeah, it is very busy, but very important. So I feel very proud of what I do.
Yeah, I bet you do.
Yeah, I do.
I mean, that's, so what part of that keeps you the busiest?
I think it's probably looking and identifying the potential efficiencies that there are when we're designing well abandonments. So in the NSTA's model clauses, it states that operators must abandon wells in a workmanlike and efficient manner. Workmanlike meaning using industry good practice. So we look and we review every suspension and abandonment that is going to happen on the UKCS to check to see if that's happening. So we apply the OUK guidelines to check to see if it's being done in a workmanlike manner. And then the efficiency is the adoption and application of new technologies and techniques and lessons learned that we see across different operators. So I would say that's probably the busiest part of my job.
I love that term, workmanlike manner.
Yes.
How do you sort of interpret that? What does that? It's a term. It's a very British term, I've got to say.
Yeah.
But how does that work? If you'll pardon the pun.
Yes. So it's so every operator has, for each license, they've got their own model clauses, and within the model clauses it defines workmanlike as that good industry practice. So we do use the OUK suite of well decommissioning guidelines to include well decommissioning for CO2 storage guidelines. Of course, operators have their own internal standards and guidelines as well that they'll use. But then on top of that, we got lots of industry good practice in terms of execution and lessons learned as well. So we try and, I guess, incorporate everything across industry into that workmanlike manner definition.
So you yourself have to keep across what all of those options are as well, so that you can be, so you can understand whether what they're offering is workmanlike.
Yes, absolutely, and efficient as well. So it's making sure that I stay on top of technology developments, the development of new techniques and execution methodologies. So it's a huge part of my job as well, as going out there and speaking to supply chain and getting to know them and what's up and coming and what's happening, sometimes what's not working quite so well, and then seeing how we can support supply chain in identifying any issues that they might have.
So bringing some learnings back into the system as well along the way.
Yes, absolutely. We're really well positioned for that because we see every suspension and abandonment, we can transfer those lessons learned across operators. So if we see that one operator is doing something really, really well, then we might ask another operator that's got a similar well abandonment or suspension coming up, well, have you considered taking this approach to it? So we're really well positioned for that, and that's something that we do as well when we're reviewing those applications.
So is there a lot of P&A work going on at the moment? Is there a lot of activity?
So there is, I'd say there is quite a lot going on, but it's not typically all the way from, say, your AB0 phase of work, so your plug and lubricate, all the way to AB3 in one go. It's lots of kind of bits of it. So there'll be campaigns for AB0 work, campaigns for AB1 and AB2, then your environmental barriers, and then your wellhead severance. So there is quite a lot of work going on, but it's not necessarily taking the wells straight from being completed operating or completely shut in all the way to AB3. So there is a lot happening. It's just maybe not quite as visible because it's not the full scope of the abandonment.
That's interesting. Yeah, I've got to say, as a non-wells person, I tend to assume that you go in and you do the whole piece more or less in one session, and obviously then come back and remove the wellhead. But yeah, it's interesting that's the way that it's working here.
Yeah, we find that it's more efficient to batch the operations into similar methodologies and work scopes and do that all together, and then come back with maybe a different vessel or a different rig to do the next phase of the abandonment. So ultimately it's getting your crews up to speed as well. So the first time you do it, it might be a little bit slow, some teething issues, but then by the time you're on your fifth or sixth, your crew is right up to speed, and then it's incredibly efficient. So it's much better to batch specific phases together rather than just go and do all of them at the same time, is what we've learned.
Back to the workmanlike and efficient.
Yes, exactly.
Very good. So where are the challenges? Where are the challenges that you're seeing at the moment, and the challenges that you're seeing, and I imagine there are?
Yes. So I think we're in an interesting space in the UKCS where we're starting to see some of the larger subsea P&A campaigns start to come through. So very recently, some of those larger tenders, some of them have been a combination of multi-operator campaigns as well, which is really great to see operators collaborating with each other. But I think for me, one of the kind of key issues would be on the technology front. So it's how do we adopt those technologies now, because we're looking at the decade of decommissioning. So if we don't try them now, there's a risk we're going to get to the end of the decade and they still haven't been utilised to their full extent. So how exactly do we make that happen? And it's one of the key opportunities pilots, but on platform wells. So you can go and do something a little bit different, and then you can move to the next well and you can monitor that well exactly at the same time. So if we can use platform wells for pilots, using a bit of a sandbox, I suppose you could say, and then once we know the technology works, then we can start applying it to these much larger subsea campaigns that we've got coming up. So I think technology it's a huge issue, but a huge opportunity. And we at the NSTA were completely open to all new technologies, techniques, and using old technologies, but in new and interesting ways as well, which we've seen coming through, which is great. But all we ask is for operators in supply chain to come and speak to us as early as possible so that we've got the chance to ask the questions. So that way, when it does come to the consenting process, it's a lot more efficient and there's no hold-ups because we fully understand the technology.
Brilliant. And what excites you then? You know, I mean, I've known you long enough to know you are very passionate about the work that you do. But, you know, what excites you about the space that you work in?
I'm going to use a slightly cheesy phrase here, but it's expect the unexpected.
Yeah.
I think that's what really excites me about, I guess, decommissioning, but well decommissioning specifically, is that you never know what you're going to get, and you might do as much planning as you possibly can, but then you go offshore to execute and it's a totally different ball game, or the wells there's a completely different configuration than you expected. So I think for me it's the challenge and kind of, I don't know if spontaneity is the right word, but it's just quite agricultural. It's really interesting and really exciting when you see people come up with really fantastic solutions that you just weren't expecting to come across. So I think that's what makes me excited about it. And of course, it's the people as well. I think in decommissioning, it's the diversity of people's backgrounds is just incredible. You get people that have spent their entire careers in decommissioning, and then you get some that are drillers, some that worked in intervention. And it's absolutely fascinating. And there's so many different potential solutions that come out of that as well. And I think getting to work with all of them makes it incredibly exciting and makes it a fantastic place to be and work.
What a lovely idea. What a lovely way to get excited.
Thank you.
Yeah. Look, thank you so much for your time, Suzie. I'll let you get back to the celebrations here. It's, it sounds like there's a bit of a party on the go, doesn't it, in the background there?
It does. No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. So we'll just wing it then, Richard.
Okay.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Okay, I'm Richard Neilson. I'm Centre Director for the National Decommissioning Centre, and we're a partnership between the University of Aberdeen and the Net Zero Technology Centre, who are based in Aberdeen as well.
Very good. So how long have you been in existence?
Centre launched January 2019, so just about 6.5 years, and we got funding out to September 26, and we're looking at how we fund ourselves beyond that point.
Brilliant. So National Decommissioning Centre, what do you do there?
So when we were set up to assist the sector in terms of cost reduction, and there was a challenge at that point set by the Oil and Gas Authority, who are now the North Sea Transition Authority, of a 35% cost reduction on decommissioning. Part of our role was to try and facilitate that, help that in terms of the sector, both supply chain operators. As part of the university, we also provide courses. So we run a CPD course. We contribute to a master's course, one of the few master's courses in decommissioning. And we run a PhD program as well. So we've had somewhere about 19 PhDs go through that. We've got 9 at the moment, 8 or 9 who have already graduated at the moment. And that's been right across the board. This is quite interdisciplinary, so everything from law and economics through biological sciences to hardcore engineering.
That's remarkable. That 19 of them through there, yeah, that's good work.
So we've got two major partners at the moment, both of whom have PhD projects running for them. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you see the decommissioning industry here now in the UK?
Sporadic. So things are probably moving a little bit better if you kind of look at the statistics. The spend has gone up, but if you look at some of the statistics in terms of what's been delivered for that has dropped off a little bit. I think there's still big worries around the pace of wells decommissioning. I know the NSTA are keen. They've got about 1,700 wells on their books to be decommissioned by 2050. And at the moment, the kind of speed of wells is 120, 150 a year. And that's obviously not going to meet that 2030 target. So there's been a big piece of work by the NSTA to try and optimize that. So that's one of the big challenges. I think the financial sector, the finance at the moment is also limiting things. So we've got a lot of deferment, companies pushing back, sometimes not because of themselves, but possibly because the parent company, who may not be UK based, have taken time to defer things and are going to push things out. So there is a kind of uptick a little bit in terms of spend, but not a huge amount more happening in terms of actual delivery, I think.
And when you think to the future then, do you see things brightening up as we get further in?
I think there's opportunity if people take it.
Yeah.
I think the biggest worry is that if people don't take it, the supply chain from the UK will go elsewhere. There are opportunities in Brazil, Gulf of Thailand, Australia, everywhere else. And there will be opportunities for these companies to go there. And whether they come back when there's a need is another challenge. So there is an opportunity, I think, if the sector gets ahead and does some work soon and shows a clear route to supply chain, that there is a constant raft of work coming in. Otherwise, I think it's going to look a bit start and stop again.
It's a challenge everywhere, isn't it? That the decommissioning by its nature is a bit lumpy.
Yes.
And managing those lumps at a sector level is challenging enough. Managing them at an industry, at an individual business level, hugely challenging.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know what's like in Australia, but certainly in the UK, there are the challenges as well of renewables deployment. So because there have been 27 gigawatts of wind licensed, there's a lot of focus on how that's going to be deployed. That impinges ports, who could also be doing decommissioning work. It impinges on the supply chain, who have a choice of cable laying for wind or taking cables out or pipelines out for the oil and gas sector. So there are some challenges.
And those businesses will go where the money is.
Absolutely.
You pay them more to put it in than take it out, and that's where they'll go.
Yes, absolutely.
Quite rightly.
And if they know there's continuous work.
Yeah. That's good. So globally, then you're based here, obviously NDC. Do you have international partners as well that you work with?
Yes, so I mean we work locally. A lot of stuff we're doing with the renewable sector, which is not decommissioning, is local. But a lot of the stuff we're doing for decommissioning is actually international companies. So we have a large partnership with Chevron, and obviously, as you know, that Chevron divested and sold most of their stuff to Ithaca. So most of the stuff we're doing with Chevron is Gulf of Thailand, Angola, and Australia. We're in discussion with some other overseas companies at the moment. So probably more happening internationally than nationally in terms of the decommissioning piece.
Yep. Yeah, I think I might have mentioned this to you yesterday. You need a rebrand.
Possibly,
the International Decommissioning
Yes.
Centre rather than National Decommissioning Centre. Look, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And
It's a pleasure.
Let's stay in touch. Cheers, mate. Bye. So, good evening, Martha, and thanks so much for the time to sit and have a conversation with me on this. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. First of all, thank you very much, Francis, and it is a pleasure to see you in Aberdeen. Well, Martha Vasquez, I do only oil and gas upstream for almost 25 years, and I am really proud of my heritage at the Schlumberger. So I did 10 years of well field operations onshore, offshore, and for the last 13 years in consulting. The last 10, Boston Consulting Group, have the privilege to be leading the topic of operational decarb of the upstream asset, and most importantly, decommissioning. Right? And now decommissioning not only of oil and gas, but also across asset classes that we realized in the last 24 months is quite a hot topic.
Very good. So, what keeps you busiest?
Well, Francis, let me just tell you that I think there is a decommissioning mini boom happening. And I know that I'm quite an optimistic and I love the topic, but genuinely every year that I remain in the topic and in the community, there is more activity than ever before. So it is definitely getting more intense in terms of the maturity, the complexity of the challenge, right? So people are maturing, and at the same, it's becoming more complex, because everything else that is happening in basins that are already mature, like in the UK. But there is also, besides this maturity and complexity, we have the excitement of the new basins that are really not, we call them emerging basins like Australia and Brazil. But honestly, Francis, these are operators, people, teams that are, like, I think once maybe you said it, getting on with it, and we can see when we reflect back, the pace of progress is equivalent to the pace of progress of some of the most active operators in the UK, for example. So anyway, all in all, we talk about maturity, the complexity, and the excitement of the new basins that are not that new. So what keeps me busy is just making sure that we are, be continuing to nurture and building the community, helping the transfer of lessons across all these basins in this context.
Well, that was a lot.
Yeah, that was more than 1 minute.
Yeah. No, and look, it's one of the things I've always loved about you is the passion that you have and the breadth that you can think about in and how easy you can digest information and share it back. If we sort of think about the UK, where we are right now, how do you see things going on here at the moment? What are your sort of prime thoughts here?
Well, Francis, I think it is a quiet moment. It's a quiet moment for Decom specifically. There's a moment of tension, and as an industry, I think as a country, it's a moment of tension. Now, what I do see in the near term, and this is what I sense, is that there's going to be an uptick of activity, Francis. It has been quite quiet. I mean, I have heard this statistic from Pauline Ines that the plan was to plug and abandon 300 wells last year, but we only completed 100, right? So we are acting way under capacity in the last few months. I think that is going to change. And I think that is going to change. I'm optimistic based on what I hear on the ground. I mean, and based on the backlog. And honestly, it is the pressure that we feel internally from the organizations, from our regulators, from the society. So my main sentiment is optimistic. I also think, Francis, that we will continue to see, more, I would say, extraordinary, evidence of improved relationship between the operators and the supply chain. And I think there is a lot in the air right now. There's going to be very soon big, at least 3 big announcements, even in the UK, of things that had not been done before. It's actually the first time in a basin that can be known as a bit too conservative, in that area. So more activity, more innovation in the relationship with the supply chain, and hopefully overall we're able to have, how can I say, we need positive news in the industry, Francis, and hopefully Decom can actually, bring back the good spirit for us, not only oil and gas, in energy, right? So I'm really hoping for this.
Yeah, that's good. So you're an optimist.
I am, actually. I
nature.
am. Yeah.
But if you took your optimist's hat off, where would you have any concerns in terms of what's happening?
In the UK.
Yeah,
or
in the
more
UK
globally.
or elsewhere globally. Yeah.
I think this the concern my major concern remains the loss of experience. I think the loss that, and this is something Decom is known for, right? More than other parts of the value chain, it is these great projects in the North Sea of 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the teams dismantled and a lot was lost. I think I am concerned about continuing to lose this experience, Francis. And not only that people get out of the industry because they retire, but people becoming more attracted to other parts of the energy industry and other geographies outside of the energy industry. My biggest concern is the loss of experience, the loss of talent, and hopefully, it is a concern, but I'm still optimistic because this is one of the most exciting places to be. I mean, why would I be elsewhere when I can be part of what is at the heart of the energy security? It is a highly technical, complex geopolitical, relationships. It is. I think this industry can prepare you for a brilliant future. Again, but I come back to being optimistic.
Yes. And that's lovely that you come back to being optimistic, but also couched in a concern as well, which I think is a concern a lot of people share. For what I see, a lot of people, if they've spent their career in oil and gas, would get to the point where they're involved, where they have the option of retiring or working decom, and some of them choose to retire rather than stay in. Or people choose to work, as you say, in another industry, and that's a real loss. That give the loss of that talent to the work that we've got in front of us. Yeah. So what excites you then as an optimist? There must be a long list of things that excite you in decom.
I hope in Decom.
Yeah. We'll just stick to the decom.
Yeah. Beyond what I've mentioned, I think I just want to see. I want to see our industry mature, like genuinely mature. I want to see those suppliers that emerged in the last 3 to 5 years. I want to see them thrive in the next 5 years. And I'm ex-Schlumberger, ex-SLB, but I am quite excited about the mini SLVs going around. I mean, we, for example, 360 Energy, and I hope it's okay to quote. But to see a company like that be born recently and thriving and taking all the commissioning industry seriously, that really excites me. Right, I'm very excited about the supply chain. Have it close to my heart. I think operators, and I just met Ursula as a decom lead in Australia.
Yeah.
And to know that she has been in this business for the last 20-25 years, she was born in this industry and she's so proud of it. And I feel so identified with her. So I am excited to see how her career develops. Now she's in charge of one of the largest and most interesting projects in decom worldwide, right? So possibly it is, so it is about the supply chain and these decom specialists and the positive future in the next decade. And hopefully I see myself in this space, Francis, for the next decade.
Good to know.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. That's the third thing. Yeah.
This space needs you. It really
Well,
does
thank you.
need you, Martha. It needs people like you with the insights that you can bring and the way you look at things. It definitely needs you, and the way that you can provoke different thoughts as well. So look, thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you, Francis.
This has been really good, and I look forward to obviously staying in touch.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're good. You look all serious there, right?
I know, but I won't last, honestly.
Okay. Shozey, would you like to introduce yourself first, and then we'll have a bit of a chat about decommissioning?
Thanks, Francis. So I'm Shozey Jafferi. I head up the energy transition team at the Department for Business and Trade here in the UK. I guess I'm the person who kicked off decommissioning as a priority sector by being involved in the strategy, the international and export strategy for decommissioning. As you know, we've got massive capability. We've been doing decommissioning for longer than I've been alive, I think it feels like, but probably not. But what we saw was, as we start to move away from fossil fuels, we felt that there was an industry there that had a huge capability, but that capability was something that was exportable. And so as we removed support for fossil fuels, we increased what we thought would be useful to do in decommissioning. So we put together a decommissioning export strategy. This was about 3 years ago. It was signed off by one of our ministers, and that has led to the work we've been doing, and ultimately to a great MOU with Australia, where we're working closely to support our supply chain to get into Australia, but also working with the Australian supply chain on what they might be able to do to help us here in the UK.
So what's the state of play at the moment for decommissioning here?
So I can give you the rosy picture. I can give you the more difficult picture. I think decommissioning is going to be a huge part of the mix of work that we do in the UK continental shelf. We've got a lot of assets who are coming to the end of their life. There's cessation of production happening quite a bit at the moment, and you've got decommissioning programs being developed for those. There is a bit of delay happening. I think the industry understands that in the current environment there are challenges in decommissioning, but what we do see is over the next several years, you're looking at probably the biggest spend globally on decommissioning happening here in the UK, and that's something that I think that the supply chain is looking forward to. There are challenges at the moment because the work is slowing down, but the uptick on the horizon and the upside on the horizon is quite significant, and the supply chain is looking forward to doing that. If I'm being a bit more pessimistic, there are more and more of the decommissioning companies that we use looking overseas. So certainly Australia is a market that UK supply chain is very, very interested in and becoming more and more active in. We are seeing many companies like WellSafe, and we're seeing Actium Group and others really looking quite strong. I met with somebody from Wall yesterday who was really quite keen to talk more about decommissioning, both here in the UK and globally as well. So I think the outlook for our exports, given the slightly quieter period that we have here, is great. But I think the uptick will come, and I think there's going to be a massive boom in the amount of decommissioning we do over the next several years.
Certainly from our side, we were very excited with the MOU. We've had, since CODA was established in 2020, we've had good relationships with UK-based associations, universities, businesses, and so forth. And we've seen, definitely to reflect what you're saying, we've seen, I don't know if you'd call it a migration, but certainly long-term visitors from a lot of those organisations coming down, recognising, I guess, that things are a bit quiet here. But, they've developed amazing technologies. Those technologies need to be used, they need to be proven, they need to be tested. And, what I'm seeing in Australia at least is that where those technologies are coming in, they're being proven out. The companies themselves are, they're getting returns on the spend that they've had to build some of these solutions. And for right now, our market, which is very busy, is definitely benefiting from the slightly quieter market that you've got here, in terms of giving these companies, who have all limited capacity, the opportunity to make sure that they're kept busy. And I guess my hope, as we talked about yesterday on the panel, I see decommissioning very much as a global undertaking. And my hope is that global view means that when one market's quiet, another one can pick up the slack, and vice versa, and we can all grow and share together as we go forwards. But yeah, what sort of, I guess, in the off the back of the MOU and what else you're seeing going on, what are the bits that most excite you, if you like, in that space?
I think the collaboration that we're seeing, to be honest, and I think maybe if I take us back to the beginning and how this sort of came back, a lot of it was our discussions that we've had before we put it in place. We will talk to the Western Australian government as well around this. I think the most exciting thing is that ability to be able to collaborate and add value and build local capacity in Australia. Because if you do look at the timelines for when the decommissioning will take place here and in Australia, they do overlap quite a bit. And I think we went into this, you and I spoke about this, it's not a we know everything, we're going to do everything for you. It was a we have experience, we want to share that experience, we want to build those relationships with Australian companies who are moving into decommissioning, already doing decommissioning work, share the good practice that we have here, talk about the regulations, talk about the policies that you have in place, and maybe try and align more and more of what we do. But the real exciting stuff is the knowledge sharing, the work that we're doing to sort of put companies together. So you and I, when I'm talking about a UK company, you're talking about an Australian company, it's how do we get them together and marry them up? We're almost like the matchmakers in terms of trying to get companies together. But on top of that, I think what we've seen is what you just on there is that technology that's being tested, if I may say, but also proven. And I know that our Net Zero Technology Centre and the work they've been doing alongside you has really helped facilitate that. But it's so exciting to be able to sort of prove technologies that perhaps die-in-the-wool operators aren't quite keen to sort of do new things, but they are once they're proven. And so it may be something that's proven in an Australian field, but hoping that can get put back into the UK CS as well in due course. So it's a bit of give and take. I think the other exciting thing is the locations. We're so far apart, and yet we are doing this work. And then there's the collaboration that happens in other markets. So my role is to look at the markets now and going forward, where decommissioning is going to be key to a safe and environmental exit from oil and gas. And you look at Southeast Asia, You look at the markets there, you look at Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia. We've been doing it a little bit in isolation, but your proximity to those nations and the fact that we've got UK collaboration in Australia means that actually it may be that some of those UK companies and Australian partnerships are the hub from which they tackle the decommissioning work there. Clearly, many of those companies will also want to set up in places like Indonesia and Malaysia, but it'll be a collaborative approach between our two nations. And further afield, I know we're both looking at Brazil and, the work that's being done there. So I think it's not just about UK and Australia doing things. It's UK and Australia building the capability to things around the world.
Yep. And on the Brazil piece, I guess given this is going to be out as a podcast, the last podcast we did was with Valverde, who's the head of planning there for Petrobras. The conference I last saw Valverde in was their decommissioning conference, and that was partially sponsored by the UK people out in Brazil. So it was, it's amazing when you go to these places, you're seeing the same companies, you're seeing the same countries represented, and everybody is looking at these challenges to learn from what everyone else is doing. They've got unique challenges in their market, the same as you have here, same as we have. And you share those challenges and suddenly you find some other brain somewhere else coming up with a solution for it. It's just phenomenal.
And I think we should add that we didn't get everything right here in the UK. The UK has learnt over years, not by doing everything right, but by actually making mistakes as well. We don't admit to saying that, we've done everything perfectly. That would be wrong. But what we do say is that where we have had challenges that we've overcome, we have to share that experience with you, with other nations, so that it's not a case of making the same mistakes. It's a case of this is what we did. It might be right for you, but actually this was the outcome for us. And I think that's as important as actually the collaboration. It's sharing the lessons learned so that we're not making the same mistakes over and over again.
And we will make our own mistakes. Every other market will as well. And every good project, you get to the end and think, oh, should have done that a bit differently. But the more we can all be sharing and learning and caring around this, the better for all of us. Look, that's been brilliant, mate. Thank you very much for your time, Shozey. And I look forward to continuing to work with you, man.
Yeah, and I'm hopefully coming out to Exeter, so I'll see you there next. But if you're back in the UK, give me a shout. And there are a few bars here in Aberdeen that might be worth visiting.
Sounds good.
All
Sounds
right.
good. Yeah. Cheers, buddy. Thank you. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if you have, then please do subscribe for future episodes, and of course share this with anyone in your network you think might be interested in all things decommissioning. And if you want to stay connected with CODA, of course, feel free to sign up for our newsletter via the CODA website. Links to the website and all our other channels are included in the show notes with this episode. Thank you.